Hawaii Kids Can is a local nonprofit focused on building an equitable education system for all keiki, while empowering students to speak up and get involved.
Our primary focus is making sure that every single child in Hawaii, no matter what their background is or what circumstances they may have, that every child has access to a great school and a great education.
We see Hawaii Kids Can as being a really promising organization that can work with families, communities, members of our policymaking community to really focus on strategies that eliminate the achievement gap.
I'm so excited with Hawaii Kids Can as a partner who's coming in and organizing and enabling community-based conversation around quality access to quality education.
Thank you for watching the Hawaii Kids Can Candidate Forum.
Presented by K5, the home team.
Produced by Orig Media.
And sponsored by the Hawaiian Electric Companies.
Hawaiian Electric, empowering our future. Aloha, and welcome to the first ever student-led Hawaii Kids Can Candidate Forum. I'm Tamsin Lim.
And I'm Marissa Halagao.
We'll be your hosts for this event.
This forum is brought to you by Hawaii Kids Can, a local nonpartisan nonprofit organization focused on building an equitable education system for all keiki, while empowering students to speak up and get involved.
Please note, this forum is for educational purposes only and is not an endorsement of any candidate.
The Hawaii Kids Can Candidate Forum is presented by K5 and sponsored by the Hawaiian Electric Companies.
At this forum, students will ask questions and will hear answers from candidates for governor, both on the Democratic and Republican side.
You'll also get to hear from Democratic candidates for the United States Congress, District 1.
As students, we may not be able to vote yet, but we have a stake in Hawaii's future.
That is why each candidate will answer directly to students with no more than 1 minute to respond to each question.
My name is Stephanie Albano. I'm an 11th grader from St. Andrews Schools.
My name is Dyson Chi, and I'm an 11th grade homeschooler living in Makiki.
My name is Erin Enriquez. I'm a 12th grader from Pearl City High School.
My name is Lei Feng Zhang, and I'm an 11th grader from Roosevelt High School.
My name is Juhui Liao. I'm an 11th grader from Roosevelt High School.
Hello, my name is J. Pierre Pella. I'm an 8th grader from Hawaii Technology Academy.
My name is Paulina Torres. I am an 11th grader from Waina High School.
Aloha o Phoenix Mamiti Valentine Ko'uinoa. I'm a 10th grade homeschooler from Makaha.
My name is Marissa Wai, and I'm a 2018 graduate from Waipahu High School.
My name is Jenny White. I am an 11th grader from Roosevelt High School.
So let's get started.
But first, let's meet the candidates for governor, starting with the Democratic candidates. In 1985, David Ige was appointed to a seat in the House of Representatives where he served until he was elected to the state Senate in 1995. During his time in the legislature, he chaired 9 different committees, including Education, Health, and the Ways and Means Committee. On December 1st, 2014, David Ige began his term as the 8th governor of the state of Hawaii.
In 1998, Colleen Hanabusa was elected to represent the 21st District in the Hawaii State Senate. In 2010, she was elected to represent the 1st Congressional District of Hawaii in the U.S. House of Representatives, where she served for 2 terms. In 2016, Colleen Hanabusa returned to Washington for the remainder of the 114th Congress and the 115th Congress.
What motivated you to enter public office?
I decided to get into public office more than 30 years ago because I found that being a public servant really allowed me to reach more people and be able to change Hawaii for the better. You know, I ran for governor 4 years ago because I felt that too many decisions by government favored special interest and self-interest rather than the public interest. And I felt that it was time for someone to stand up and be counted to really make sure that all of the decisions of government were really focused on benefiting the people of Hawaii. You know, I pledged to be governor for all the people of Hawaii to ensure that we can have faith and trust in government so that our people can count on decisions being made that would benefit each and every one of them.
You know, I grew up in Waianae. I'm fourth generation from Waianae. And you know how you say that unless you see a comparison, you don't know what you're missing? It's because of my experience in Waianae and playing with my cousins in Honolulu that I was first introduced to the concept of inequity. You know, it really had to do with roller skating, and it has to do with the fact that we had no sidewalks in Waianae, but my cousins did. And it also meant how it didn't hurt when you fell in concrete, but on asphalt, it was terrible. So I decided one day when I went back home and was looking around, we still don't have sidewalks. And that's when I decided it's time to do something about it. And I would put myself out, and the worst that could happen to me is people wouldn't vote for me. Luckily, the people of Waianae supported me, and that's what brings me to this point.
How will you ensure that every student in Hawaii is getting the education they need and deserve?
When I first got elected, within my first term, I did the co-chairmanship of the Felix Investigative Committee. Felix was an issue, a young female student with special needs who was not given her fair share and given a free and appropriate public education. That gave me the first taste of what it means to have public education and how necessary it is that it be fair and it be something that's available to all. I believe education is the ultimate equalizer. I am a product of the Waianae Coast, and I do know how important it is. I think having gone through that experience, seeing how the DOE failed to operate appropriately, makes it very clear to me as to what needs to be done to ensure that that never happens again. That is what will be kept in my mind and will motivate me through this process.
When I became governor, we started a summit to engage all of the community. We had more than 1,000 participants, teachers, parents, students, administrators, and community members truly committed to improving public education. We had more than 45 town meetings statewide, including Lanai and Molokai, to really get the best ideas. And we developed a new blueprint for public education here in the islands. It really focused on doing away with the one-size-fits-all philosophy of the previous administration and really focused on empowering schools and trusting those closest to the students, the principals, teachers, and community members to really design the best school system and the best school for that community.
What will you do to preserve our environment and protect our way of life in Hawaii?
As governor of the state of Hawaii, I was proud to convene the World Conservation Congress, the first time that any state in the country had hosted this convention of the leading conservationists from around the world. I announced our Sustainable Hawaii initiative, which committed to protecting our watersheds and our oceans, doubling food production, keeping invasive species out of our community, and 100% clean, renewable energy. And I'm the only candidate who really has taken action. We've protected 40,000 acres of watershed all around the state. We've planted more than 250,000 native trees so that we can repopulate our native forests. And I think most importantly, we've taken legislative action banning harmful chemicals in our sunscreens and pesticides from our agricultural farms.
I've told everyone there is no place as beautiful or as special as Hawaii. Everybody believes where they come from is special, but there is no place like Hawaii. When I was Senate President in 2008, we did two very critical initiatives. One is called the Hawaii Clean Energy Initiative. Many people look at it and talk about renewables by the year 2045. and the other was Sustainability 2050. What those two initiatives stood for is something that I carry with me. And even in the Congress of the United States, where I serve today, it has been the guiding principles. For example, I was very happy to be able to announce that after 15 years of the floods on the Alawai that destroyed Hamilton Library, the federal government has stepped forward and has given Hawaii $345 million to ensure that that doesn't happen again. These are very important concepts, and I live by it.
How will you ensure that the next generation has quality jobs and a strong local economy that keeps them here in Hawaii?
When I mentioned Sustainability 2050, one of the things that I carried away from there, and they would be now 10 years older, is we asked the seniors, how many of you will come back to Hawaii after college? You know, not one hand went up. And when asked why, they said it's because of jobs and a place to live. Last night, I was on an AARP debate, and I said, society defines itself by how we treat our kupunas and our young people. That is why I committed and will have and make possible a position in the cabinet level to help us understand kupunas and millennials. The only way I can ensure that jobs are available or the economy is as you want is to listen to you. And my cabinet must listen to you. And that is why I want you to participate, because only then will we understand what you want, not what government thinks you want.
I believe that the public schools are the foundation of our communities. The better our schools do, the more vibrant our economy. You know, I've been focused on early college so that every high school student has the opportunity to take college courses and earn high school credit at the same time. This really makes a difference in extending and evaluating and improving our public schools. We also are doing coding, cybersecurity, robotics, and digital media to create the next generation of quality jobs for our community. I've also invested in venture capital accelerators that really create new companies in our community. The accelerators that the state has been very successful in creating more than 145 new companies, and most importantly, attracting $250 million of investment in these companies.
What is the biggest issue facing Hawaii, and what is your solution?
I believe the biggest issue facing Hawaii is homelessness and housing. You know, I have 3 children of my own, and I want them to be able to choose to call Hawaii home. And they continue to tell me that they need an affordable place to live. We focused on programs that work, like Housing First, and other programs that truly move homeless individuals into permanent housing. You know, for the last 2 consecutive years, we've had a reduction in the statewide count of homeless individuals for the first time in many years. And most importantly, we're focused on producing housing at all income levels. My goal is to produce 10,000 housing units by 2020, and we've already completed more than 5,300 homes. 2,000 of them are affordable, and we have 1,400 more homes under construction as we speak. And most importantly, we are well on our way to our goal of 10,000 new homes by 2020.
For me, the biggest issue facing Hawaii is you. How do we keep you, your talents, in Hawaii? If you wish to leave, that's fine. But I don't want to see you leave Hawaii because you feel that you do not have a place in Hawaii. So the biggest issue we have is to address those concerns that I heard. Jobs, affordable housing, a place to live, or feeling that you belong in Hawaii. That is why, as I said earlier, after much consideration and speaking to so many of you, I have decided that the only way I'm going to ensure that the greatest asset that we have is really you. It's the next generation, is to make sure that you feel you are important and you have a say. And believe me, in my administration, you will have a say, because we can't say we're building the future for you if you don't feel vested in that future.
Why do you want to be our governor? And what sets you apart from your opponent?
I want to be your next governor because I believe my total political journey brings me here. Some of you may know I was the first woman president of the Hawaii State Senate, the first Asian woman in the United States to lead any chamber, and the first woman in Hawaii's history to lead a chamber. And also in 2010, the people sent me to the Congress of the United States. I have a specific skill set, and I'm the only one who knows how the federal government operates and how to navigate that maze, as well as the state, and the fact that we have 3 co-equal branches of government, which I've participated in. I believe that that's what distinguishes me from any of my opponents. In particular, the present governor, who was in office almost 14 years before I first got elected. I'm asking you, it's time for a change because you do not want same old again.
You know, the state of Hawaii is a $14 billion corporation, very complex. I am the only candidate that actually has experience in serving as governor. For the past 3.5 years, we have made tremendous progress in every area of state government. We've improved our public schools. We have an economy that's booming. The unemployment rate is the lowest in the country and in the history of the state of Hawaii. And most importantly, we are creating jobs and new businesses for our community. I am the only candidate that has a proven track record of getting things done. You know, I'm not a lawyer, I'm an engineer, and I really focus on solutions. Real leadership is about engaging the community, working to find the best solutions, and then getting it done, improving the quality of life for each and every one of you. Aloha and mahalo.
We hope you enjoyed the forum featuring our Democratic candidates for governor.
Next up, the Republican candidates for governor.
HawaiiKidsCAN is a local nonprofit focused on building an equitable education system for all keiki, while empowering students to speak up and get involved.
Our primary focus is making sure that every single child in Hawaii, no matter what their background is or what circumstances they may have, that every child has access to a great school and a great education.
We see HawaiiKidsCAN as being a really promising organization that can work with families, communities, members of our policymaking community to really focus on strategies that eliminate the achievement gap.
I'm so excited with HawaiiKidsCAN as a partner who's coming in and organizing and enabling community-based conversation around quality access to quality education.
Registering to vote is easy. Using your phone or mobile device, you can register from the mountains. You can register from the beach. You can even register during me time. Go to elections.hawaii.gov and register to vote today.
We treasure our way of life in Hawaii. Together, we're creating sustainable, resilient communities. Hawaiian Electric has made significant investments to modernize the grid, making it smarter, stronger, more reliable, and more resilient. Thousands of poles, transmission lines, and underground cables have been upgraded. With new wireless and digital devices to monitor the grid, recovery response can be faster, and more renewable energy can be integrated. We'll continue these efforts into the future so we can preserve these islands. Working together, we'll create a stronger, more resilient community and a greener, more sustainable Hawaii. The Hawaiian Electric Companies, empowering our 100% clean energy future, empowering our communities, empowering you.
Welcome back. Next up, the Republican candidates for governor.
Let's meet them now. Andrea DePola currently serves in the Hawaii House of Representatives. representing District 43. She was first elected into the House of Representatives in 2014 on her very first run for office and was re-elected in 2016. Following re-election, Andrea Tupola became the House Minority Leader, a position she continues to serve today.
John Carroll was elected 5 times to the Hawaii State Ledge, where he served for 4 terms in the House of Representatives and 1 term as a state senator. He was certified as a staff judge advocate for both the Army and Air National Guard units in Hawaii. John Carroll also served as a commercial pilot who flew for Hawaiian Airlines from 1958 until 1989.
Ray LaRue currently serves as the president and chairperson of the Education Institute of Hawaii. Previously, he served as the president and CEO of Pacific Historic Parks, as assistant superintendent of Office of School Facilities and Support Services for the Department of Education, and as chief of staff of Marine Forces Pacific, Camp Smith, Hawaii.
What motivated you to enter public office?
In 2003 and 2004, I lived in Venezuela, and I learned about government and how it can affect and influence an entire country. Upon returning home, I realized how many freedoms we have here, how many opportunities we have, and the fact that we can participate and contribute in our communities. So in 2010, I actually bought a home, and I started to wonder, why are we paying so much taxes, and who's teaching my children? I have a 9 and a 10-year-old, and at that time, they were just entering the public school system. And so I decided that I wanted to get more active. I wanted to contribute in my community and help where I could. So my initial desire was to serve the community. And the more I got out there and got involved, people encouraged me to run for office. So I asked questions about what it meant, and I learned that it meant that you can serve and help where people need their voices to be heard. So I ran for office, and in 2014, on my first election, I was elected to represent the people of Hawaiian.
In 1966, I was asked by the Republican Party, Hiram Fong was senator at that time, to run as a co-candidate with James K. Aloha, who had been the former lieutenant governor. That's got me involved, but then I watched politics very closely from then on for the next 64 years, and I watched the decay of our economy, agriculture, and the cost of government. And all of these things coupled have basically forced me effectively to come forward at this time with the experience that I have to take over the job of governor, to make the changes that need to be made to make the future proper and strong and solvent for the children that we have, including my grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And I thank you very much for allowing me to be here today.
That's a great question. So what motivated me to go into public office? First of all, as a 30-year career Marine, public service has been in my DNA for most of my adult life. What has brought me into the political scene here in Hawaii locally is a different question altogether. As a concerned citizen and one that looks at our political landscape, I've realized that there is no freshness of voice or no option for the Hawaii voter. If you look at the options that you have as a voter, it's really just one party or a vote for the status quo. In fact, if you even look at our congressional delegation, all of that belongs to one party as well. So if the voter needs or wants or should have that freshness of voice, that choice to make up their own mind, then that's a huge motivator to be involved, be engaged. And it's really about how do you make Hawaii grow? How do you make it prosper? And I didn't see as any of the options as viable.
How we ensure that every student in Hawaii is getting the education they need and deserve.
Yeah, well, first of all, my background includes a Bachelor of Education degree in elementary education. From my perspective, the most important job in the world is elementary education. The teachers here are terribly underpaid. I taught only 3.5 months because I made much more money flying part-time than I did as a school teacher here. I will ensure, beginning immediately if I'm governor, to dismantle the bulk of the Department of Education. We're ranking number 50 in the whole United States with the product we're putting out. That's absolutely deplorable. I want to take the billions that are being put into all of the different bureaucratic efforts in the state and get that money down to the schools, to the teachers, and also to the school community-based management councils who can then see what's going in their schools, see where their money is being spent, and make some determination as to the priorities that they want in managing their schools. And I think it's one of the most important jobs that I will have as governor of this state.
That's a super question. So I am currently the president of the Education Institute of Hawaii. And our whole fundament is why we are who we are with retired principals, teachers, union members, and community parent groups is we are big fans of school empowerment. In other words, it's about that kid in the seat, and everybody is in direct support of those that are in direct support of that kid in the seat, the student. If you look at school empowerment, it takes trust. And to have empowerment, you need trust. And if there's no trust, there's no empowerment, and there's no innovation. So every child in a school seat in the Hawaii's DOE, which is, by the way, the 10th largest school district in the nation, 180,000 students, they deserve and they should have exemplary public education. And how do you do that? I believe it's through teacher leadership, school empowerment, putting the choices back in the classroom where the teachers know best what their students need and they teach to that child. And I think that's a great start.
I want to be a champion for education, and one of those things is that we have to address the weighted student formula. Right now, every student is given $12,000 if you go to a public school, but if you go to a public charter school, it's only $7,000. And there's no money for infrastructure, there's no money for special education, for transportation, for food, and so we need to make sure that it's equitable. But also, in some areas, that amount of funding is different because of the distance to resources. We have to ensure that in rural communities, as well as those that are far from the resources that they need, that this is actually a fair and equitable way to fund the schools. We need better facilities. One of the things that I did in my community was I helped to move a building out of a parking lot, create a study hall, and rehabilitate the locker room. And the reason why I did it is because facilities matter. If we don't have good facilities for our students to learn, they won't be able to learn and excel. We also need to increase the amount of vocational opportunities we have in high school for job placement so that more children can stay in this place they call home for generations to come.
What will you do to preserve our environment and protect our way of life in Hawaii?
If you look at our environment, it is absolutely inexplicably linked to everything that is how we live in Hawaii. It's culturally connected. It is economically connected. It is why all of us that call Hawaii home because of the beauty of that environment. And how do you sustain that? How do you look at the natural erosion of the planet, also coupled with the visitor industry that does come just to enjoy that environment? We're losing some of our pristine beaches, and that has to be fixed. If you look at the way that we've done this as a state, we dredge the sand, we dump it back onto the beach, and we push it back out. 7 years later, you repeat that very, very expensive process. There are brand new technologies that other countries are using, geotextile tubing for one, that actually corrects that 4 times more, less expensive, and it actually promotes new reef growth. So it's a great solution, and we have to stop using yesterday's technology for tomorrow's problems.
My favorite thing to do is community cleanups. We just did our 13th one last month, and we haul 3 tons of trash every cleanup, as well as haul abandoned cars off the road. The reason why I do this is not just to make our community a better place and to make it look beautiful, but I want to remind the community members to take ownership over this place that we call home, to be more mindful of the way that they treat their environment, and to be more mindful of the way that we teach our children how to treat our environment. This coming Saturday, we're actually going to do another cleanup, and I'm excited because we involve sports teams, we involve nonprofits, we involve businesses and churches and whoever wants to come out. And this is one of the ways that we can protect our environment. Another way is the way that we make decisions about Department of Land and Natural Resources. We need to make sure that we're making decisions to preserve and protect our land and our water, because this will ensure that the people of Hawaii can stay here for generations to come if we make sure to fund and protect our streams, our rivers, our valleys.
Well, primarily I will preserve the work that I already put into effort back in the 70s when I was a member of the State House of Representatives. All of the current environmental law that we have, which includes the Monk Seal and Green Sea Turtle Protection, Shoreline Protection Management Act, Clean Water, Clean Air, geothermal, various alternative energy uses, including solar, the built-up of agriculture and aquaculture. All of those things came off of my desk back in the early 70s. And those are being followed to some extent, not at all to other extents. And as head of I'll have a head of DLNR who's going to be totally familiar with my position on environmental protection, which is that it is the #1 asset in this state, perhaps in the world, and we have an obligation to the future and to the present to make sure that it stays in place. Various things like eradicating sheep and some of the other pest control methods that are being used are outdated, outmoded, not needed, and I will change that.
What will you do to ensure that the next generation has quality jobs and a strong local economy that will keep them here in Hawaii?
We need to support our local businesses and make more local jobs that are high paying so that local families can stay here in this place they call home for generations to come. I have a business in my district right now that has jobs available, high paying jobs, but unfortunately we don't have the training and we need to start that in high school. I want to increase the amount of vocational training that we have across the state so that upon graduation, high schoolers can immediately get into jobs that have to do with these specialty trades. We also have to help more of the entrepreneurs, people who are business-minded, who have great ideas to take back the local market, to make sure that they tell their story about why people should buy a Hawaii product and know why the Hawaii products are actually more connected to our people and how those local dollars can support families here in Hawaii. I want to be an ambassador and help more local businesses by decreasing costs and cutting unnecessary regulations.
That's a great question, and if you look at the mass exodus of our young people leaving Hawaii, if you want a growth economy, one of the fundamentals of a growth economy is keeping your young people in place. Right now, all they have is a promise coming out of a K-12 system or even an undergrad program is going into government or going into service, and that cannot be sustained. So what is that sister industry to the visitor industry? I thoroughly believe it's in the tech sphere, and why not Silicon Hawaii? Why aren't the Elon Musks of the world building their innovation centers in Hawaii? If you look at the top 5 hiring companies today, they were not the top 5 hiring companies 10 years ago, and they won't be the top 5 hiring companies 10 years from now. Hawaii can be on the leading edge of those tech companies, and I believe that if we do that and we start in school, in other words, stop preparing our kids for the past, in fact, our past, and aligning them more with what those employment opportunities are going to be in the future, and that resides in the tech world.
Well, thank you for asking that question. First of all, we have shipping restrictions here which require that anything coming from China, Indonesia, Japan, Korea, all of the things that we need for farming, such as truck, tractors, fertilizer, pesticides, herbicides, almost all of that comes from elsewhere, most of it from the Far East. Because of this federal law that says that a ship can't come here unless it's built, owned, manned, flagged, and maintained in America, it has to go on a Jones Act, so-called Jones Act ship. I intend to ask the President to get rid of the Jones Act restrictions on Hawaii and actually for the whole United States. And I've already asked him, and I've been working on that and sued 2 times to try to make it happen. That impact has totally ruined this economy. We've gone from having a pretty flourishing agriculture to almost zero agriculture now. 92% of everything we consume here comes from elsewhere on mats and ships. That's absolutely a crime against our community.
What is the biggest issue facing Hawaii, and what is your solution?
The biggest problem that we have in Hawaii right now is the cost of living. We've got families that are leaving here because they simply cannot survive even with 2 and 3 jobs. The median cost of a home, so-called home ownership, $700,000 plus. We've got unfunded liabilities in the billions, which there's nowhere at the present time with this economy that they're ever going to be paid. So what we have to do is to get a grip on that. Number one is to get rid of the Jones Act and the shipping restrictions that are basically strangling our economy. We need to build up agriculture. I'm going to do a survey of every job in the state, find out what it's costing us, whether it's worth keeping, and if it's not worth keeping, we'll get rid of it. I'm going to do a forensic audit on the rail, found out where every dime that came from went to, what we got for it. If people have to go to jail because of it, so be it. I'm going to stop the spending on that rail construction, and we'll be looking at all the other ways to enhance our economy, particularly in the area of agriculture and cost of government.
The biggest issue that we have facing Hawaii right now is housing. We need to talk about how to support more local developers, keep more local jobs here, and make sure that these prices of houses are actually going to help local families stay here. We have hundreds of local families leaving Hawaii every day, every month, every year. And in order for us to stay connected to this place we call home, we need to make sure that we're addressing this housing crisis. We need to talk about how to use more local resources, how to bring down the cost of expensive shipping or other type of strategies that could help us bring down those costs, like cutting permitting time. This is something that government can directly affect. We can make sure that that permitting time isn't double or tripling the cost of a home. We also have to realize that this issue is affecting our homeless population. We need to have not just a strategy, but an actual plan of how to address homelessness. We need to decentralize that plan and make sure that it's not one size fits all, because every community is going to need its own plan to help the homeless populations.
The biggest issue for me is the economy. And people will say, well, it's about the money. I would say it's not about the money. It's all about the money. And if you look at all of the issues that really come under that context or that umbrella issue of the economy, whether it's public education, whether it's rail, whether it's homelessness, whether it's keeping our young people here because they cannot afford the cost of living, that is the biggest problem. Right now, we do not have a growth economy. We have an economy where the Council of Revenues will say, we have about a 2 to 3% growth. Then they back that off somewhere in the middle of the year such that we have a very, very flat economy. So where's the growth in that? Add to that, we have a $25 billion unfunded state liability where the last child born has not been born that will have that burden as they get older. If you look also at the citizens of Hawaii, we are the most taxed citizens in the nation with regards to that tax burden. Those, to me, have to be addressed first before we can start even looking at all the other fundamental issues facing our state.
Why do you want to be our governor, and what sets you apart from your opponent?
Why I would love to lead the state is that I don't believe any of the options for the voter today, given the problems that we're facing, take us forward in any measurable way. I think it's fine time, and I believe Hawaii deserves more of a statesman-like leader versus a politician brand style of leadership, which has not done us very, very well for going back 6 decades. We have to move the needle forward, otherwise we're going to be an indebted state. And if you look at Illinois, we're not far behind them with regards to, are we going to pay our pensioners or are we going to pay our teachers? And that's a big, big fiscal decision to make. I do believe that my 30-year career as a Marine, proven leadership, proven operational experience, my time as the Assistant Superintendent Office of School Facilities here in this state, give me a different perspective with regards to how the state needs to move forward. How do we look at our fiscal irregularities? And then also, how do we keep our kids here and bring them through a K through 12 system that actually gives them promise?
Well, first of all, nobody's had as much time to get ready to be governor as I have. In fact, well, I won't go into that, but the thing of it is there's so much necessity here, and I have asked people like Keli'i Akina and Sam Sloan to run for governor. They all refuse, and they say, you want it done, then you go do it. So that's one of the reasons I've been asked by other people who know me. I also bring a tremendous variance of background which nobody in this race has. I have 34 years military. I have 50 years practicing law. I've had over 50 years in international business. I have had 32 years as a pilot at Hawaiian Airlines. And among other things, I have business involvements which include the federal government and federal contracts and so forth. So I bring a huge volume of knowledge, including my 10 years as state legislator and involvement with other people like Richard Nixon and other presidents. So I feel totally very, very well qualified.
I ran for office in 2014 with the desire to serve the people. I'm a music teacher. I'm a mom. I'm somebody who decided to step up and contribute and make a change. I want to run for governor because I believe that this change that we've created in our community by empowering the people to take ownership is what we need to see throughout the state. The government can do this much for us, but we can do this much for ourselves, and we can actually increase that impact that the government has upon our lives, upon our quality of life, by treating the community like they're an asset, not a detriment. The more I got community members involved in my community, the quicker and the faster we were able to solve problems. We don't just have problems in Hawaii, we have dilemmas, we have crises. And I believe that running for governor and addressing some of those systemic issues is going to create that change that we need so that generations of kids that call this place home can stay here and live and raise their children.
We hope you enjoyed the forum featuring our Republican candidates for governor.
Next up, the Democratic candidates for Congress.
Hawaii Kids Can is a local nonprofit focused on building an equitable education system for all keiki while empowering students to speak up and get involved.
Our primary focus is making sure that every single child in Hawaii, no matter what their background is or what circumstances they may have, that every child has access to a great school and a great education.
We see Hawaii Kids Can as being a really promising organization that can work with families, communities, members of our policymaking community to really focus on strategies that eliminate the achievement gap.
I'm so excited with HawaiiKidsCAN as a partner who's coming in and organizing and enabling community-based conversation around quality access to quality education.
Registering to vote is easy. Using your phone or mobile device, you can register from the mountains. You can register from the beach. You can even register during me time. Go to elections.hawaii.gov and register to vote today.
We cherish these islands. We can all do our part to preserving the Hawaii we know. At Hawaiian Electric, we're committed to a 100% clean energy future. Hawaii is blessed with an abundance of natural resources: the sun, the wind, the ocean. In collaboration with energy partners and with support from communities throughout the islands, we're integrating more renewables onto the grid. With each project, we're investing in our future, creating green jobs, decreasing our reliance on fossil fuels, and gaining our energy independence. And we're reducing our carbon footprint to protect the coastlines and continue our Hawaii way of life. Working together, we'll reach our clean energy future and create a greener, more sustainable Hawaii. The Hawaiian Electric Companies, empowering our 100% clean energy future, empowering our communities, empowering you.
Welcome back. Now for our federal race, the Democratic candidates for the United States Congress, District 1.
Let's meet them now. Ed Case represented Hawaii in the United States Congress from 2002 to 2007. Previously, Ed Case served in the Hawaii State House of Representatives from 1994 to 2002, where he rose to Majority Leader.
Doug Chin is currently Hawaii's Lieutenant Governor. In 2006, he was appointed Chief Deputy Prosecutor and later the Acting Prosecutor. From 2010 to 2013, he served as Managing Director for the City and County of Honolulu. Doug Chin became Hawaii's Attorney General in 2015.
Beth Fukumoto was first elected to the Hawaii House of Representatives in 2012, representing the 36th District, which includes Mililani, Malka, and Waipio Acres. Beth Fukumoto served as the House Minority Leader and the Director of Research for the House Minority.
Kaniela Ing was elected to the Hawaii House of Representatives in 2012, serving the 11th District in South Maui, which includes Kihei, Wailea, and Makena. Kaniela Ing has served in the House of Representatives for 3 consecutive terms.
Donna Mercado Kim is a Hawaii State Senator, where she served as Senate President and chaired several committees. From 1982 to 1984, she was a member of the Hawaii House of Representatives. From 1986 to 2000, Donna Mercado Kim served on the Honolulu City Council.
Ernie Martin is a member of the Honolulu City Council, representing District 2. He was first elected to the council in 2010. Currently, he serves as the chair of the City Council. Previously, Ernie Martin served as acting director of the Honolulu Department of Community Services.
What motivated you to enter public office?
You know, I started in politics at age 22 when I went to Washington, D.C. to work for U.S. Congressman and Senator Spark Matsunaga. And it was an incredibly influential and important time in my life because up until that point, I wasn't particularly interested in politics or government. My mother had been in elective office, but that was about it. And I found myself really in Washington, D.C. with Spark Matsunaga. Matsunaga was focused very much on public service as a service to the public. And he taught me so many great things about politics and about government and about how government is really us helping ourselves. And that's what it should be. And so what motivated me ever since my time with Matsunaga was really to duplicate the kind of public service that he performed, a very personal public service, a very focused on the public service, and that's been carrying me ever since, to try to make life better for all of us through government.
I got involved in this race for the same reason that I think so many people have gotten involved or wanted to get more aware of what is happening in their community. We're seeing a lot of things happening out of Washington, D.C. that are impacting all of us, whether it's different things that are affecting the type of people that can come into the country, or gun control, or things that are being addressed or not addressed having to do with climate change. And each one of these decisions that come from Washington, D.C. are potentially impacting an entire generation. So for me, I really want to be part of that solution. I want to be someone who's able to take on and find solutions that are going to be able to help our future generations, not just my kids, but everybody else out there that's watching this.
When I first got back from graduate school, I was going to school in Georgetown, and I got this great degree, and I came back to Hawaii, and it was the middle of the recession. I couldn't find a job, so I thought I would stay with my parents for a little while I looked for work. And I found work at the legislature. I had tons of student loans that I needed to pay off, and all I could do was file papers. That was the only job that they had. And so I was filing papers, listening to all these people talk about huge, important issues that were facing our state, but none of them seemed to really understand that regular families were struggling. They didn't understand that I was a college kid that couldn't move out of my parents' house. I did everything that I was supposed to do. I went to college, I got my master's degree, and I was supposed to have a better life. Instead, I came back and had to live with my parents and couldn't find a job. And the people at the legislature didn't seem to understand that. So I thought maybe they've been in office too long. Maybe they lost sight of what regular people need, and maybe we just need new voices. And that's why I ran for office.
Well, I'm an unlikely politician. I don't come from money or power. My mom worked at Liberty House. My dad was a server at a hotel. He was an ILW member. So, they wouldn't have much, but they taught me to work hard and always try to lift up other working people. So my father, he unexpectedly passed away when I was 11. So my mom was left with 4 kids and her grandma on her own. And we relied on Social Security, Medicaid, free school lunch, and all these programs that are under threat today. I was 14 years old when I got my first job picking pineapples shoulder to shoulder with immigrants and other folks that were really suffering. And I was able to come out the other side of some hard times, but so many others aren't so lucky. So I fight for working families because I come from one. And I got to Kamehameha schools, became a first-generation college graduate at UH, and then from there realized that I could run for office and have a chance. I was first elected at 23 years old.
My motivation was not to enter public office, but to help right the wrongs in our community. It began in Salt Lake, where I had to fix the horrendous lack of on and off-street parking, which I did by constructing a residential municipal parking lot. It's fighting to save 11 families from having their homes condemned, or helping people when they feel that they have exhausted all of their options. That's what motivates me. It's knowing that I can make a difference in our community is why I'm running for Congress.
Okay, well, thank you for that question. If you know a little bit about myself, I was raised in public housing. I mean, that's the environment I grew up in. So an impoverished circumstance, a rough upbringing. I think, when you come up through that type of lifestyle, there's always a sense of appreciation for probably what you don't have and some of the hurdles that you have to overcome. I've always felt fortunate. My family has a life of service, primarily military service. My brother passed away during the Vietnam conflict. Because of that, my parents didn't want me to go into military service, so I chose a career in public service. Another opportunity to continue to serve, a little different in the sense that public service is all about assisting communities and primarily distressed population. So I've been lucky, I've been successful in my own right, but I've never forgotten the opportunity to give back to those who probably haven't had the same opportunity.
How will you ensure that every student in Hawaii is getting the education they need and deserve?
So we need to make sure that every student has a quality education. It was really the only way I was able to start from the working class and become a first-generation college graduate in my family, thanks to my public school teachers and some great teachers in Kamehameha schools as well. I believe that no matter if you live in Hawaii Kai or Aiea or Kalihi, you should be able to reach your potential academically. So that means tuition-free college and trade schools for those not going to college, and student debt cancellation, because that could be the next bubble that will explode our economy. If we can afford to bail out big banks and Wall Street, then we can afford to give my generation a shot. We also need to make permanent the Native Hawaiian Education Act and protect our schools from being privatized by the Trump administration and Betsy DeVos. But we also need to move forward a positive vision of education for all of our keiki in Hawaii.
I currently represent the district of Mililani and Mililani-Mauka. I have one of the best school districts in the entire state. We perform really well all the time, and part of that is because we have diversity and because we have the ability for our teachers to have flexibility. We're able to introduce new programs when we need to. We're able to cater to each individual community. I think that's incredibly important, making sure that our teachers can do what they need for the communities that they're teaching in. I think it's also really important that we continue to fund our schools and fund education at every level. This includes funding early childhood education, making sure that every kid can go to preschool, making sure that single mothers like my sister can afford to put their kids into daycare where they can learn things and be ready for preschool and then ready for kindergarten. And then on the other end, making sure that people can graduate from college without a huge amount of student debt so that they can really make it well here in Hawaii after they graduate, so that they can have that dream that they were told that they could have.
You know, education is one of the most critical things we can do through government for all of us. And when I was in the House previously, which was 2002 to 2007, I served on the House Education Committee, which is responsible for all of our federal efforts for education. Education has so many components to it, but the most critical one from the congressional perspective is to maintain the federal programs that are so important to education. Our federal government supports an incredible amount of education right here in Hawaii. And those programs are good, solid programs, but sometimes they don't translate well from Washington, D.C. To Hawaii. And so many times the real challenge of making sure that our federal government is doing a good job for education is making sure that Washington understands Hawaii and how education monies need to be spent here. So education is an area that definitely needs a lot of focus in Washington, D.C. From our congressional delegation.
As a public school graduate, my teachers had made all the difference. I believe that investing in a quality education from K-12 to college or technical schools, which includes raising our teachers' salaries, is the best way to ensure that our next generation can find good jobs and can afford to stay here in Hawaii. I will work to make college more affordable, and I'll stand up to Betsy DeVos's dangerous cuts to education funding. I will lead the charge for affordable college tuition and advocate for interest-free student loans.
Education, of course, is very critical. I mean, I talk about this as well often on the campaign that, you know, my own parents didn't graduate from high school. I mean, I come from a family of 9, and of 9 of us, not all of us even graduated from high school as well. You know, I'm fortunate. I mean, I've graduated from high school and gone on to college. But, you know, that's the key, I think, education. It opens up a lot of doors for a lot of younger kids coming up, especially from disadvantaged backgrounds. It's all a matter of access and having the same opportunity as any other child or youth to have that level of education that's equitable, no matter what your economic circumstance or social circumstance is. You know, at the federal level, I think there's more that can be done to provide subsidies, especially to disadvantaged communities, and then providing them with a level of technology and access to the resources.
I strongly believe that every kid in our state deserves to have a quality education regardless of the zip code where they live or where they come from. And I've been part of some great working groups when I was the Attorney General where I was able to meet with people all around the country to talk about different ways that we could be able to make our public schools even better than they are. And some of those ideas were this. One of them was making sure that we're able to take care and find ways to be able to prepare kids for college so that they can be able to do well. But then the other thing was also making sure that we prepare kids to be able to have a great job after they graduate from college, after they graduate from high school. And so with going to Congress, I really see that being a great opportunity to be able to not only help kids have a quality education so that they can go to college, but also so that they can have great jobs afterwards.
What will you do to preserve our environment and protect our way of life in Hawaii?
One of the biggest challenges facing us here in Hawaii is climate change. We have to make sure that we're building to stand the test of time. All of this new housing that we have is in a zone that in 10 to 20 years might be flooded because of sea level rise. What we can do is make sure that the federal government is giving us funding to make sure that all of the affordable housing we build is climate resilient. That means that we're taking into account things like sea level rise and climate change. The other thing we need to do is modernize our grid. This will drastically lower the cost of living in Hawaii by lowering the price of electricity. Right now, our residents pay incredible prices just to turn the lights on, and that's something I'd like to change. Making sure that we're getting money from the federal government to fix our grid is important. This will also help towards our renewable energy goals. I'm very dedicated to making sure that Hawaii reaches 100% renewable energy, and as a congressperson, I would try to get the United States there and establish the same goals on a national level.
You know, I always laugh when I go to these forums, and I always hear the other candidates talk about what they're going to do for the environment, and they all have great ideas, but very few of them will talk about what they've already done. Because to me, your record is a reflection of future actions. You know, if you know my career in the Honolulu City Council, I've been very fortunate that we preserved and conserved many former ag lands that were threatened by development. You know, some of you may know Turtle Bay is a classic example. Although the present governor is patting himself on the back on what a great job he did, it was actually the previous governor, Governor Abercrombie, who pushed that forward in an area that was threatened by development. But it was actually the city council and under my leadership that provided the initial seed funding. So I'm just going to continue to do what I do in terms of protecting the environment, and I feel confident.
My great-grandparents believed, and my ancestors believed, that we need to preserve our environment and take care of each other. Our land wasn't for profit and speculation and desecration, but we were taught to malama and cherish and protect it. So that's what I've been doing since my first day in office. I have the strongest environmental record in this race, pushing a 100% renewable energy goal, stopping fracked natural gas from reaching our islands. I was endorsed by Sierra Club every race throughout my state house campaigns early without even doing the questionnaire because they believed in our vision. And really, our environment is our economy. If we don't protect what makes Hawaii so special, there is no tourism, there is no real estate or any of the industries that we rely on. I believe that our future is in economic, environmental growth, not just unchecked economic growth.
Climate change is one of the biggest issues that's facing our state and our entire country. And if we don't face this head on, then it's going to impact an entire generation. I think one of the things that concerns me the most is that there are still people out there who are very high up in politics or high up in power that continue to say that climate change hasn't existed. And to me, I think that that is not what science tells us. It's not what our teachers are telling us. And it's something something that we need to address head on. So one of the things that I want to do when I go to Congress is make sure that we are constantly looking for federal funding, as well as doing the research and development that it takes to make sure that our next generation is ready to face the issue of climate change and rising sea levels. So for us in Hawaii, that's really key. It's just making sure that we have the ability to be able to take care of ourselves even if the sea levels rise.
You know, when we live in Hawaii, sometimes we forget that we live in one of the most amazing places in the entire earth from an environmental perspective. Clean air for the most part, beautiful scenery, and oceans that any place in the world would die for. And yet sometimes we take that for granted. Sometimes we think that because we have it so good, we can just depend on it always being good. And of course, our environment is completely stressed here in Hawaii on a number of fronts. I would just mention too, invasive species that are still coming into Hawaii and basically destroying the native flora and fauna. And then of course our oceans, a very, very special concern of mine, given that I really grew up on the Big Island in the ocean all the time. I think our oceans need a tremendous amount of support from our federal government. Federal laws, federal programs, federal regulations is what's going to protect our environment. And I'm very, very happy that I was just endorsed by the Sierra Club, which is one of our nation's leading environmental organizations, for my record and service.
Protecting Hawaii's air and water is essential to our economy and our way of life. Here in Hawaii, we mālama the aina. However, recently, our environmental laws have been significantly weakened as a result of Trump's de-emphasis of federal environmental laws and his rejection of the science on global warming. You know, this is despite the recent and more frequent catastrophic natural disasters affecting our country and our world. I will strive toward establishing our nation's environmental protection laws, and I'll stand up to stop the current direction of the EPA in order to protect Hawaii's environment.
How will you ensure that the next generation has quality jobs and a strong local economy that will keep them here in Hawaii?
First, we need to do everything we can to improve the business climate and make Hawaii more business-friendly for existing businesses, while attracting clean businesses to locate in Hawaii. Second, we need to make sure that our educational system is prepared to educate and train our young people in emerging technologies. Finally, we need to maintain a healthy economic base in the military and in the hospitality industry.
Great. 70% of my classmates from Kamehameha have moved to the mainland. I now have a 2-year-old son, and I just want to make sure he has a shot to make it here. I think we all share that concern as well. We always brag about our unemployment rate being about 2%, but it's only because so many of us are working two or three jobs, and folks stop looking and they moved away. So we need livable jobs. That's why I'm the only candidate championing a Green New Deal, which means 100% renewable energy by 2035 nationwide, and that's going to be achieved through a federal job guarantee. So a lot of these jobs in coal and oil, these folks are going to need a place to land. And there are so many better jobs in advanced energy like solar and wind and hydro that we can actually transition them away to plant trees, to retrofit buildings, and really build a clean energy economy that leaves no one behind. That's why I'm the only candidate campaigning on this. And actually, we got 30 candidates across the nation to follow our lead.
I have a three-pronged approach to what it takes to be able to help our economy do great here in the state. One of them, of course, is tourism. We always know that so many people come from all over the world to be able to enjoy Hawaii and all it has to offer. But the other two components are this. There's also energy and making sure that we're able to meet all of our renewable energy standards and lead the way for the entire world in being able to produce renewable energy. But the other thing is also focusing on agriculture. One of the things that happened in the last 30 or 40 years was Hawaii used to have sugar and pineapples, and those things have gone away as far as the industry is concerned. So what we want to do is replace that kind of industry of sugar and pineapples with food that will be able to sustain Hawaii locally. And so as the Lieutenant Governor, one of the things that I did was a farm to school initiative that's able to bring fresh local produce, fresh local meat into our foods, so that way what kids are eating is what is being grown here.
It's not a matter of quality of jobs. I think, all of the candidates are asked in terms of their support for a minimum wage, raising the minimum wage. It's not really a minimum wage issue. It's a livable wage issue, right? I mean, you can raise the minimum wage to $15, which I think some jurisdictions have had already the opportunity to raise it at that level. But $15 an hour in the state of Hawaii will not go very far. What we have to focus on is a livable wage. There are many opportunities, I think, already existing both in the private sector as well as the public sector, the rapid advancement of technology. So many opportunities, I think, for kids coming up to provide for themselves and their families, even in the trade industry itself. But it's more those on the lower level, I think, who's just starting out, who's struggling to just make ends meet. We need to focus on really concentrating on a livable wage so that it's fair for everyone.
One of the things that I say every time I talk to a group of people is that Hawaii is in the process of losing an entire generation of local residents who grew up here that can no longer afford to stay. One of those key components to fixing that problem is to create better jobs. But creating better jobs includes a lot of things. We need livable wages, but we also need to make sure that those wages are not going to inflated costs. We're paying so much for housing here. We're paying so much for transportation and so much for electricity that it is very difficult to bring jobs to our state. And then our workforce just leaves, and that's the problem that we keep having. It's hard to recruit new businesses here when they're not sure if the workforce will be able to afford to live here. So I think one of the critical components of bringing jobs to Hawaii and making sure that we can stay here, people like me can stay here, is making sure that we can make Hawaii affordable for people that want to stay.
Again, when you take a look at the priorities that anybody in government needs to focus on, including especially our members of Congress, the economy and jobs has to be at the very top of the list. And this is an area that I've always focused on throughout all of my time in government. And that takes so many different ingredients from the federal government perspective, but you can start with the basics, which are taxes and regulations. If taxes are too high and if regulations are too cumbersome, then businesses cannot survive and prosper. And if businesses cannot survive and prosper, then we don't have jobs. And so the challenge from the federal government perspective is to get the level of taxes right and the level of regulations right. After that, here in Hawaii, we're particularly focused on our small businesses, which provide almost all of our jobs here. I served on the Small Business Committee when I was in Congress previously, and I would intend to focus on small business again to make sure those jobs are generated, not just now, but through the next generation.
What is the biggest issue facing Hawaii, and what is your solution?
One of the things I hear all the time is just making sure that our next generation is able to feel like they can afford to live here in Hawaii. The price and the cost of living is so high. I have children of my own that are in high school and in college, and one of the things that is so important to me is making them feel like they're going to be able to come back to Hawaii and have a job. It would break my heart, actually, if my kids were to tell me that they can't come back to Hawaii because they don't feel like they can afford to live here. So I really want to focus on Congress on making sure that we are able to bring down the cost of living as well as be able to provide more affordable housing all throughout Honolulu so that we can take care of our kids that way. One of the big things that comes up in Congress is the ability to raise the minimum wage, and I am supporting raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour because I think that is a down payment that we're giving to our next generation.
Hawaii, like other states, we're facing a critical breakdown of our social services. The inability to adequately deal with people who have emotional and mental issues, addictive behavioral problems, and those who are unable to make ends meet. I support Congress appropriating more funds and resources toward addressing each of these social needs, or we're going to face the acceleration of homelessness in the country. So I will advocate to increase Hawaii's allocation for low-income housing tax credits. The federal and state must work together to make housing more affordable and address our homelessness here in Hawaii.
For me, I had the opportunity to look at the question. I think I always answer it differently. So today I'm going to give a little different spin. to me, it's more of the biggest challenge for Hawaii is quality of life. You know, one I've already talked about in terms of a livable wage, you know, affordable housing, all the challenges, the lack of an adequate infrastructure, you know, homelessness is a very challenging issue, not unique to Honolulu, but to any other jurisdiction. I think at the federal level, it's very critical, whoever has the opportunity to serve, to remember who they represent, you know, and the circumstances that are unique to Hawaii, and to fight for the resources and advocate so that our state, being that it's very unique in our particular circumstance, will continue to get that level of resource necessary to do the investment for infrastructure, affordable housing, and of course, ultimately to eliminate homelessness.
The biggest issue facing us is our economy and jobs. Right now, of course, our economy is doing very, very well. And so sometimes it's very easy when something is going so well to take it for granted and to forget that you cannot take it for granted, that you have to work at it every day as a member of Congress or in our business community here to make sure that the economy stays strong and jobs stay strong. And when we talk about the economy, one thing that we have to talk about is our tourism industry, which accounts for about 1/3 of our economy overall, 200,000 plus out of 600,000 jobs here. I've worked for the last 5 years with Outrigger Hotels Hawaii, one of the leaders of tourism right here in Hawaii, and I've learned an incredible amount that I hope to take to Congress. But that's not all. We really have to diversify beyond tourism. I've focused for a long time on other pursuits such as technology, and I think we need to diversify from the federal government perspective. The feds can help us do that.
The single biggest issue facing people in Hawaii today is our housing crisis. We're short 60,000 homes. Right now, the median house is $795,000. That means that you got to be making $200,000 out of high school or college to be on track to home ownership. So our generation is not set up to succeed like our parents were. We need to take bold action. People are tired of hearing affordable housing. What we need is social housing, universal housing, housing for all. If you look at Kaka'ako, there's these luxury high-rises going up to the sky every month. Who are we building for? They're selling for $20 million right next to Native Hawaiians and veterans living on the street. The money is there, it's just going to the wrong people. It's being siphoned out by luxury developers instead of going to local people. That's why I'm the only candidate who rejects all money from luxury developers and corporations, so you know I'll stand with you.
A lot of people are needing to make decisions. If they want to own a home, they're going to have to leave the state. And that's not something we want to happen. We want to make sure that people who want to live here can, that regular people can afford to stay. That's something that I'm committed to. It is the biggest issue facing our state. And there are a lot of things we can do about that. One is improving our infrastructure. There is federal funding for things like sewer and water and all these other things that our state tends to pay for or developers pay for. That drastically increases the price of housing. So the first thing that I would want to do is find federal funding to fix those things. The other thing we need to do is take on out-of-state investors. We have spent way too much time letting people that aren't in this state buy things here and leave them vacant. Those are homes that could go to local residents and they're not.
Why do you want to serve in Congress, and what sets you apart from your opponents?
You know, it's always a difficult question. I always, you know, if you saw me at the Hawaii News Now debate, I chuckled a few times because, you know, every candidate is struggling to say I'm the best candidate. But if you know me, I'll never say that. You know, I never will say I'm the best candidate, because the way I was raised, for those of you who raised here in the state of Hawaii, you never brag about yourself. That's the most difficult thing to do. So what sets me apart from the other candidates is that I think for more than any other candidate in this race, I've never forgotten where I came from. I always continue to remember, you know, the upbringing I had and the respect I have for others, irrespective of their circumstance in life. But the one fundamental difference is that I'm the only candidate who served both in the executive branch and legislative branch of government. Being an attorney myself, I'm a member of all three branches. No other candidate can say that, and I think it provides me with a significant advantage.
I want to return to Congress really for two reasons. The first reason is that as I look from Hawaii back to Washington, I think our government is broken. Too much dysfunction, too much yelling and screaming at each other, not enough talking, not enough problem solving. You know, I am somebody that likes to sit down and deal with problems and walk them through and decide what the right solutions are. I think I can offer something there. Also, here in Hawaii, we are extremely motivated on always having a very, very strong congressional delegation there. You know, we think we are the best place in the world, and of course we are. We're the most important place in the world. But when you are 4 members out of 535 members of Congress, you better work together. And we always need a very, very strong team in Washington. I think I can contribute there. I think it can contribute my prior experience in Washington, 5 years plus 3 more with Senator Matsunaga, and my private sector experience and my motivation to focus on problem solving, all of which distinguish me from my opponents in this race for Hawaii's benefit.
You know, I can no longer watch the partisan gridlock in Congress that's threatening our communities, our fundamental rights, and our future. What sets me apart is that I have been fighting for working families, for our keiki and seniors continuously for 35 years on the Senate and local level, in leadership roles like Senate President and as the Ways and Means Chair, where I had to balance the state's $20 billion budget. Also, I'm the only one to state publicly that I will not use this seat as a springboard to run for the U.S. Senate. And as a single mom, I'm the only candidate with a mother's perspective on issues facing women in today's society.
I decided to run for Congress because I believe that we need somebody who can be a voice for everyday people and the struggles that they're facing. That's why I got involved in politics in the first place, and that's why I decided to run. I looked around and wasn't sure that anybody was really speaking for people that were struggling in their everyday lives. Part of it is that I'm still close to that struggle. It's still my story, as it is yours. I'm dealing with student debt. I'm trying to find a home that I can buy. I'm paying too much in rent. So are my family and my friends and my community. I know what it means to struggle here because I love this place and I want to stay. I think that makes me the right person to go to Congress and fight to make it better. I can be your voice because I'm living the same things that you are. I do believe that I'm the right person. This new Congress could be 1/3 of new people. They're young voices that are demanding change. And whoever we send needs to be somebody that can work with that Congress, work in that Congress, and bring back things for Hawaii.
Well, I think one of the things that's happening right now in 2018 is we see a lot of crazy things that are coming out of Washington, D.C. And I feel like what sets me apart from all the other candidates is that I'm the only one who was an attorney general and also a prosecutor. If I actually go to Congress, I'll be the first person from Hawaii that serves in Congress that came from a law enforcement background, which means that I can really be able to talk with a lot of authority about the need to have strict gun control laws, which is something I really believe in. But I think the other thing is also being able to hold accountable some of the decisions that are being made either by our current president or other decisions that are made that hurt Hawaii's priorities. And by that I mean that Hawaii has so many great things that it has put into place that really welcome people, that embrace diversity, that includes people everywhere they go and doesn't discriminate. And you can count on me to be someone who's going to fight so hard for our civil rights and to make sure that we get everything that supports us.
This campaign, we're doing it very, very differently. We're not taking any money from the corporations, the lobbyists, and the old boys who've been controlling our politics for generations. People understand that you can switch politicians all you want, but nothing changes because the same corporations are pulling the strings. It's just fresh paint on an old machine. We're breaking that machine completely, not taking any of their money, so I can talk about how we need Medicare for all, tuition-free college, a 100% renewable energy future, jobs for all, housing for everyone. We can afford it. We just need the political will to stand up to big money. That's what we've been doing, knocking on people's doors, returning the Democratic Party to its roots when we represented the working class, not the billionaire donor class. I just want to give my son and all of our kids a shot to make it here, but also to lead better lives ourselves. You know, it's urgent and we can do it. We just need to come together and rise up like our ancestors did back in the plantation.
Well, that does it for the first ever student-led Hawaii Kids Can Candidate Forum. We hope you learned a lot.
Early voting has already begun, and the primary election day is on Saturday, August 11th.
On behalf of HawaiiKidsCAN,
Mahalo! Thank you for watching the HawaiiKidsCAN Candidate Forum.
Presented by K5, the home team.
Produced by Orig Media.
And sponsored by the Hawaiian Electric Companies.
Hawaiian Electric, empowering our future.
Enlightening. At Hawaiian Electric, we keep the lights on. At home, at school, and at work. We're here for you all day and every day throughout the year. Energizing. Together, we're exceeding Hawaii's renewable energy goals. You've made Hawaii the leader in residential solar. And we're introducing community solar, ideal for renters, condo owners, and small business. Electrifying. You can charge electric vehicles at home, at work, and at charging stations throughout the islands. Drive an EV to save money and go green. Empowering. We'll power our way to a 100% clean energy future while investing in a stronger, more resilient electric grid. And we'll get there working together. By supporting our local charities, we're strengthening our communities and partnering with you to create a better Hawaii. The Hawaiian Electric Companies, empowering our 100% clean energy future. Empowering our communities. Empowering you.
Here's a couple tips to help you with the primary election.
On your ballot, review the instructions.
Select your political preference.
Then, find your selected political preference and only vote for the candidate within that ballot.
Remember, if you vote outside your selected preference or vote for more than the number of candidates allowed, your vote won't count.
For more information, contact the Office of Elections.
HawaiiKidsCAN is a local nonprofit focused on building an equitable education system for all keiki, while empowering students to speak up and get involved.